Hey guys, and welcome to the long-awaited New York apartment hunting video. I have been tingling to make this video. Tingling's a weird word. It sounds like I have to pee out this video. I've been itching to make this video for a while because I just love apartment hunting. I love looking at spaces. I love thinking about prices and what's a good deal. Even in like my free time, I will go to open houses and be like that bitch who eats the free food and pisses off real estate agents because I just love looking at real estate. So today I'm gonna walk you guys through the entire New York apartment hunting process. I toured over 10 apartments, so I'm gonna show you all of them, give you my thoughts, and I'm also going to include exact rent prices and locations because that's what makes one of these fucking videos useful to begin with. I know it's very expensive. I know it can feel personally offensive when people pay a lot of money in rent, but I want to live here while I'm young. I'm very lucky to be able to afford it. I know it's thanks to you guys. And yeah, I just wanted to be transparent about rent because I don't think it should be a big fucking taboo. Don't roast me, thank you. So before we jump into my actual apartment tours, I wanted to give you guys some background on the New York real estate market because I have found that it is so different from anywhere else in the United States. First of all, rental units in New York just go really fucking fast. One of the first apartments I toured in New York, I showed up on time to the open house and somebody else had already showed up 10 minutes early and submitted their application and the apartment was gone by the time the open house opened. In New York, you have to be ready to decide literally where you're gonna live within like 20 minutes or a couple hours of looking at a place. What is a good time to start apartment hunting in New York? I would recommend to start looking at apartments online around 6 weeks to a month before you're ready to move. Now, 6 weeks out, you're probably not going to actually be able to rent any of the apartments that you look at, but I always think it's a good idea to do some research online to get a feel for how much space you get for certain prices, what different neighborhoods are looking like. So when you actually go apartment hunting, you're not getting screwed over and you know what's a good deal and what is a ripoff. StreetEasy is the main site where people list rental units in New York. You can also look on Zillow, but I just found StreetEasy to be better organized and it was a lot easier to contact the agents and arrange times to view apartments. So that was the main one that I ended up using. Then I'd recommend coming out to New York around 2 to 3 weeks before you're ready to move in. That's what I did. I came out here January 17th. I apartment hunted right after I landed in New York and I was ready to sign a lease starting on February 1st. That being said, if you aren't familiar with New York, I would recommend either starting by coming out here and subletting an apartment for a couple months or making a visit in advance and really taking a look at a bunch of different neighborhoods at different times of day. Visiting New York feels very different than living here, and the neighborhoods that you might love when you visit, you're like, ooh, Times Square, baby. Trust me, you don't want to live in Times Square. If you're not sure, it's always better to be on the safer side and sublet a place first before making a year-long commitment to a lease. Fall and winter are generally considered off-season in New York, where there are fewer rental units available, so it can be harder to find the exact type of unit that you're looking for. But because fewer people move in the winter, there's also lower demand, meaning that you can get a much better price on an apartment. I would say apartments were renting for like 10 to 15% cheaper in the winter than they were in the summer. In the summer, there are a lot more options available on the market, but I've heard that it's also very, very competitive because everybody likes moving in the summer. The weather's nice. People will come up to New York post-grad, which means that you have to be ready to sign a lease even faster, and you end up paying a premium on rent because there's so much demand. So how much money do you need saved up in order to move to New York? I would recommend saving 4 months of rent before you move out to New York, which I know is a lot of money, but it will go very, very fast here. First of all, when you go tour an apartment and you are ready to put down an application, there's a $20 application fee, and they will also ask for usually a month's worth of rent upfront as kind of a good faith deposit while they approve your application in order to hold the apartment. If you don't get approved, you will get that money back. If you do get approved, that will go towards your security deposit. Then if you do get approved for the apartment, you'll have to pay first month's rent and a broker's fee, which is such a little bitch, honestly. Basically what a broker is the person who arranges open houses, who shows the apartment, and who has you sign the leases. So as a tenant, you have to pay them for their services. Most broker fees are between 1 month of rent and 15% of annual rent, which I personally think is such a ripoff, but that's real estate, baby, I guess. In good news, though, they did just pass a law in New York that the landlord now has to pay the broker's fee. I think it should go in effect the next couple months, and that would be great news for tenants because it would mean that you wouldn't have to pay several $1,000s more just to get an apartment. But it is possible that rent will just go up because landlords will then incorporate the broker's fee into the monthly rent price. So, yeah, turns out landlords still have control over everything in the end. We love to see it. New York is also very strict about the income you need to qualify for an apartment. Pretty much every landlord will require that your yearly salary is 40 times the monthly rent price. Most apartments will also accept guarantors within the United States, but your guarantor's yearly salary has to be 80 times rent, which is a lot. My final tip is to make sure you come with your paperwork prepared. I will list on the screen now a list of all the documents you need in order to apply for an apartment here. It is best if you gather them up front. Because basically once you find an apartment you like, you will put down your application fee and your good faith deposit, and that will usually buy you around 2 days to submit all of your application materials. So it's just best if you have them all up front. You can submit them right away rather than potentially losing out on an apartment because you couldn't find your tax return or you couldn't get a letter from your landlord in time. And yeah, it's always good to be prepared. The Girl Scout in me talking. All right, so now let's get into the stuff that you guys have probably been waiting for this entire video, which is the actual apartment tours. So I was looking for a studio or small 1-bedroom in downtown Manhattan for under $2,500. Since I work from home and I make videos, I really prioritized having good natural light, a quiet apartment, and some nice little vintage details because I am a vintage hoe. So my first appointment was in East Village. The East Village is historically an immigrant neighborhood. Well, I guess all of New York is technically historically an immigrant neighborhood because we're all immigrants. Then in the 60s and 70s, it became a center of like punk rock counterculture. I personally liked it because it has a very like old school New York feel mixed with a lot of young artsy people. Jesus, I just described gentrification, didn't I? So the first apartment that I visited was a studio in East Village, but it was a pretty spacious one at that. There was definitely enough room for a bed and a desk and a little corner to film in, which is pretty much what I needed in an apartment. I also really liked that it had high ceilings. It made the space feel very spacious. It also had a separate kitchen, which was kind of nice because a lot of apartments in New York will have the kitchen like as part of the main studio area, and it's kind of nice to have that separate space to cook and to keep all of that kitchen clutter. The bathroom was also a bathroom. It did the job. It had quite a long hallway, which was a little bit awkward, but I'm not complaining. There was enough space for like some extra shoe storage. The windows were pretty big, so it did get a good amount of light, but they faced north. Before this round of apartment hunting, I really had never thought about the way that my windows faced. I didn't care. I was like, it's a window. What's the difference? I learned the hard way in my last apartment that north-facing windows never get direct sunlight because of the way the sun rises. It basically made filming videos so hard because I would have to use studio lights pretty much all the time in order to get enough light to film a video. And especially during the winter where I was at home all the time, I just like never felt the sun on my face. It made me so sad and it made me constantly want to get out of my apartment. So this time around, I was kind of a stickler for getting apartment windows that faced south, which would get direct sunlight for the majority of the day, or at least east or west where they would get a couple hours of direct sunlight. Another thing that I always look for in apartments is just like the vibes. Some apartments you walk in and you're like, ooh, this is a weird place. Like I couldn't imagine myself living here, but this one felt super homey, although I might have been biased because the furniture was just really nice. After I toured the apartment, I was also allowed to go up on the rooftop. Now, the vast majority of pre-war buildings in New York will not let you go on the roof because it's like not zoned to hold human beings and the landlords don't want to get sued. So it was really special that this one had a rooftop. It obviously was not particularly well finished, but it was really gorgeous to see the view of New York, and it would just be really fun to like be able to have friends up there, to get drunk and go up on the roof, to even shoot videos up there. However, I did look around and I noticed that there was an empty lot that they were starting construction on right next to the building, which would be a concern in terms of shooting videos. A day after I toured this apartment, I did ask the landlord for an application just because I got like good vibes from the building, but he said the apartment had already been rented just because it was such a good price. But it's okay because ultimately because of the north-facing windows and potential construction nearby, it probably wouldn't have been the best fit for me as a video person anyway. The next apartment I saw was a 1-bedroom in East Village for $2,300. What I loved about this apartment was the vintage details around the windows and this absolutely gorgeous fireplace. I could really envision this as like the perfect backdrop for fashion videos. Through this doorway, there was another huge room, but unfortunately it didn't have any natural light. This is like such a New York thing, but there were windows in the living room that directly faced brick. So it was essentially just another wall. For this apartment, it wasn't as big of a deal because there were other windows that let light in, but it did mean there was a lot of square footage that I couldn't fully take advantage of because I couldn't film there because it was so dark. But it could have been a good place to like put my bed and have more of like a cozy nighttime vibe. The kitchen was quite small, but had nice modern finishes, as did the bathroom, which actually also had a full-size tub, which is very, very rare for New York. Out of all the apartments I saw, I think this was my favorite aesthetically. However, this apartment was fucking loud. It faced a multi-lane street and the glass was just really thin. It was not soundproofed properly. It sounded like I was there on the street. Another concern I had was I could occasionally hear the pipes like squealing and rattling. In some apartments, if they're not well maintained, when somebody showers or turns on their heat, the pipes will like squeal and scream at you.
Grasp your mandrake and pull it up.
For me, if I had to record a video, I just like wouldn't be able to do it. And it would be really frustrating, you know, like getting set up for work for the day. And then the pipes are just like, ah! That was my best pipe impersonation. I wouldn't have been able to do my job if I lived there. So yeah, that kind of sucked. I didn't end up applying to that one. My next appointment was in Chelsea, which if I had to put it in a nutshell, I would say that it is a little bit of a bougier, kind of like the type of person who owns an art gallery or is featured in Architectural Digest vibe. There's a lot of art galleries, fancy restaurants, and it's also a large center of LGBTQ plus culture in New York. It's also a great place if you need to commute because it's so close to all these different subway lines. I didn't think personally it was the best fit for me in terms of neighborhood, but it is still like a really, really good location, and I really like this apartment. This studio was a couple floors up and a walk up, and the actual studio space was quite small. It could pretty much fit a bed and then a very small desk if you got the location just right, and that's it. So for me, that was definitely pushing it a little bit, especially because I have to work from home. However, the thing that I wanted to check out in this apartment was the beautiful outdoor space. This terrace faced the back of the building and it was actually up on the 3rd floor, so it got a decent amount of light, but it was also like so nicely tucked in a little cove of buildings, and I don't know, I felt like I was like wrapped in buildings. It was really lovely. The outdoor space was just so freaking beautiful that I was really considering it, but ultimately it came down to a value calculation of, do I want to spend 6 months cramped inside a tiny apartment where I can barely fit a desk and a bed and then have 6 months with this glorious outdoor space? Or would I rather have an apartment where I have enough space year round and maybe no outdoor space? So I ended up not applying to that apartment, but it was a really lovely space. My next apartment was back in the East Village. It was a 1-bedroom for around $2,000. I forget the exact price on this one, but it was a lot of space for the price. It was kind of a suspiciously good deal. When I had seen this online, I really liked the large windows and this little archway detail that it had in the middle. However, what I didn't see on the listing is that this apartment had like a valley in the middle. It's hard to tell in this video, but the floors were so slanted inwards, it was literally like a dent inside the apartment. The broker was trying to convince me. She said the last tenants put like books underneath their couch to level out their furniture and like they made it work. But I think a problem for me, more than the fact that the floorboards were slanted, is that that is a sign of a really badly maintained building. Basically over time, hardwood floors will cave in, but in order for hardwood floors to cave in that severely, the landlord had not updated that apartment in probably like 100 years. Like it was really, really slanted. If a unit is like that badly neglected, I think that it could point to larger issues with the building. And it turns out that I was right. Because as I was walking down from that apartment, there was this 80-year-old lady who came out of another one of the units in the building, and she was like, "Did you just go to an open house? Please do not live here. I have bed bugs. I have contacted the landlord. They won't do anything about it. It is disgusting here. Please do not move in." I was like, oh my God, this is New York, baby. Look out for those red flags. If you're getting weird vibes from a building, if it seems like it hasn't been well taken care of, it probably has not been. At this point, I was getting a little demoralized, so I decided to check out this apartment just for the hell of it. I kind of had just gotten obsessed with this apartment on Street Easy, and I knew it was too expensive for me, but I really wanted to check it out anyway because I happened to be in New York and in the neighborhood, so I was like, why not? This apartment was on the border of Greenwich and West Village, which I would describe as like the East Village's bougier older brother. They're some of the most expensive neighborhoods in New York, hence this apartment being expensive as fuck. To put it in a nutshell, when you think of where a girl in a rom-com lives, this is the neighborhood. It's so like romantic, quiet, the architecture is universally beautiful. So this apartment, I mean, I don't even know what to say about this apartment because like I knew off the bat that I wasn't going to get it because it was so expensive. But let's just take a moment to like drool over this place, okay? Look at those windows. Look at that chandelier. Look at those vintage details. And most importantly, look at that fucking terrace. This place had like the most gigantic private terrace. It was overlooking a park, so it had like sweeping New York City views. It was lovely. It was so lovely. This apartment is so nice. I showed so many people the videos of this apartment because I was just like, look at it. Look at how nice it is. I still like daydream about that apartment sometimes. Anyways, on to the next apartment that I saw. My next apartment was in Chinatown. Now, I kind of had mixed feelings about living in Chinatown because on one hand, I felt like such a gentrifier, like going in there and looking at a nice loft apartment when there are like grandmas and grandpas who have lived there their entire lives. But I also felt this need to like show my appreciation for Chinatown. I think there definitely still is a stigma in New York for living in Chinatown, and even this listing was listed as Little Italy online instead of Chinatown as like a way to get more people to come to the listing, which is kind of shitty. So I don't know, it's complicated, but that's where this apartment was. So anyways, this apartment, it was a little bit over budget for me. It was $2,600, but my like heart dropped when I walked into this place. It was so, so gorgeous. This was the first apartment I'd seen that had south-facing windows, and oh my god, it was so, so nice seeing and feeling that direct sun come through the window. I also just really vibed with the layout of this apartment. It just like made sense to me. I could definitely envision the bedroom being super nice and cozy and just curling up there, and then having a workspace out in the main living room and shooting outfit videos against this brick wall. They were also in the process of refinishing the apartment, so all of the finishes on the kitchen and the bathroom were super, super nice. Yeah, this was just, it was like the perfect space for me. I was so close to applying to this place. But as I was getting my phone to send the broker the apartment fee, the upstairs neighbor started walking around and I could hear like every single step. The ceilings were just insanely thin. And then the upstairs neighbor also turned on the TV, and even though it was at like a medium volume, I could hear everything that was going on the TV. I was like, maybe I could make this work. Like if my upstairs neighbor works a 9 to 5, I can just film during the day while they're gone. But then it's like, what if they work from home? What if there's a holiday and they come home? What if they are just like loud as fuck and I can't film anything in this apartment? So once again, the fact that I have to film videos in my apartment kind of fucked this one over for me. So moving onwards, we have apartment number fucking like 500. I've looked at so many of these. This was quite the mystery unit. A couple days into my apartment hunt, it came up on Street Easy and it didn't have any photos, which normally is like a horrible sign, but I happened to have some extra time, so I decided to check out this apartment. This one was $2,295. It was a studio in East Village, and it actually turned out to be a really good option. The reason they didn't have photos was because they were renovating it versus the apartment just being ugly as fuck. So it turned out to be pretty promising. They were in the process of renovating the kitchen and giving it new finishes, and they had also recently like torn down the wall that had separated the kitchen before, so the apartment seemed a lot more open and spacious, which was definitely a good move. This apartment was also so tall that it had a little storage loft, which was super cute. Unfortunately, you couldn't sleep up there, but it would still be a good place for storage, and I thought it was still a cool detail. I also asked the broker to show me all of the finishes of the kitchen, and he kind of like showed me in the pile of boxes that was sitting in the apartment, the countertops and what the sink would look like, and it looked like they were renovating it to be really modern, so it would look really nice. The only con of this apartment is that it wasn't the brightest. The windows faced northwest, so it would get some direct sunlight only in the afternoon. But I definitely kept this one in mind as something to apply to as I went to the rest of my apartments for the day. Next up, I headed back to Greenwich Village to look at a 1-bedroom for $2,700. Now, this was a little bit out of my price range, but I thought it was worth checking out because if it was a larger space, I was like maybe willing to push my budget a little bit, and I just like looking at apartments, so I was like, why the fuck not? Right when I walked into this apartment, the thing that struck me the most was how peaceful and quiet it was. It was 5 flights of stairs up and faced the back of the building, so you really couldn't even hear street noise. It felt like a really peaceful oasis away from New York. I also loved the finishes on this apartment. It had brick walls, but they were painted white. A while ago, I had DIY'd my own white brick wall out of a piece of styrofoam. That's how much I love white brick walls. It also had dark wood floors, which, ooh baby, that gets me going in a different way. A lot of apartments in New York have the classic kind of orangey hardwood floor, which is still very nice, but it feels a little bit bright and brassy compared to my preferred aesthetic, which is a little bit more like muted, which, these floors were so good. Overall, this was such a beautiful apartment, but my main concern was the kind of long and narrow layout. It would make it harder to film outfit videos because in order to film a full body shot, I need my camera a certain distance away from me, and this apartment just didn't have a lot of width. It was just a long boy, but it wasn't girthy. Yeah, I was a little bit on the fence about this one. I wasn't like so crazy head over heels for it that I needed to get it and that I needed to spend $2,700 a month on it. So I wanted to take like a couple more days to think about it, but it turns out this apartment was super popular, so it got taken off the market by the end of the open house, so I never got a chance to apply to it anyway. So at this point, it was coming to the end of the weekend, and I was a little bit nervous because I had seen so many apartments, and the ones that I liked even a little bit were already off the market. So I basically at that point was considering that $2,295 one in East Village that was still getting renovated, maybe the one in Chinatown, but I had one more apartment to see. This one was a studio with a little bedroom alcove for $2,000 per month. I showed up so early to this open house because at this point I had seen like, what, 13 apartments? I had seen so many apartments. All of the ones that I liked were going off the market so fast, and I was reaching like the end of my rope. I was ready to just commit to an apartment. I knew what I was looking for. I knew what my options were, and I was like, I think this could be the one. So I showed up like 15 minutes early to the open house, and I made sure I was the first one in the door because this was such a good price. It was the cheapest apartment I had seen in Manhattan. Not saying that $2,000 a month is cheap, but for Manhattan, it is very hard to come by. Right when I walked in, I was like, this is it. This is it, baby. This is what I've been looking for. So, sorry I'm like horrible at building suspense. I'm just way too excited about this apartment. It has windows that face south, it has open views, and right when I walked in, there was so much direct sunlight streaming through the windows. I was just like, oh, give me that dopamine, baby. Give me that vitamin D. I need it because it's winter and I'm so sad. It has a little bit of that vintage charm. It has an exposed brick wall, but it has a pretty updated kitchen, and it has a real oven, which is also something that sometimes is a little bit rare in New York, especially for cheaper apartments like this one. In the back, it has a cozy little bedroom nook, which I actually really like. It's nice to have a little bit of separation between my sleeping space and my main working area. There are definitely some cons of this apartment though, namely that the ceilings are very, very short, like noticeably short. Like you walk in here and you're like, bro, I could literally touch the ceiling. I think that they're like 8 feet tall ceilings. And the other quirk of this apartment is that the bathroom is one of those funky ones where the toilet is in a separate room than the shower and this absurdly tiny sink. So yeah, the things you do to get slightly cheaper rent. So in case it wasn't incredibly obvious, this is the apartment that I ended up choosing. I'm so excited. It's all mine. Holy shit. Bro, I live in New York now. I did the thing. I live here. Oh, man. So yeah, I have lived here for about a month now, and I love it. Like, I 100% chose the right apartment for me. Chef's kiss. Good job, Ashley. It's just a great place. And I'm so excited that I can finally show you guys because I've been like hiding it in all of my Instagram stories and stuff. Anyways, I hope this was really helpful for you guys. If you are apartment hunting, best of luck. May the odds ever be in your favor. And I will see you guys next week. Bye!